Hello and welcome to GrainTV. It's a Friday edition, November 14th. Corn and beans to the downside. Corn down 4, beans down 30, and wheat was the only gainer in the day in the grain complex, up 6. Cody, what was the key driver today?
Well, when you look at export sales here, you did see wheat actually beating analyst expectations, booking 417,000 metric tons. Soybeans, the leader to the downside today, came in with 1 million metric tons, well, a little over 1 million metric tons, just shy of analyst expectations of about 1.1 million metric tons to 1.3. So that was a little bit of a disappointment. Soybeans have been following meal most of the week. Soy meal came in with 21,000 metric tons. There was a large cancellation that brought us down to that level. Last week we did have net cancellations for soy meal, so it is good to see it positive, but it was a disappointment to see that cancellation. I think that was one of the things that added a little bit of weakness to the soy complex.
Yeah, and when you've had the bull run that soybeans had, you need that continued bullish news. And so even though we missed the mark just slightly, it was maybe enough to trigger a pretty broad-scale sell-off as we go into the weekend.
Absolutely. Take a look at the daily chart here for the January soybean contract, and you'll notice here the bar to the right, the furthest bar to the right, we just had a very violent selling action here today. Just another day of volatility. Of course, this was very directional as we closed off right near the lows, but you'll see we moved through the 100-day moving average, but be careful here. We've moved down to the trend line support of this rally since the beginning of October. I'd be just a little bit cautious here on Monday. You may get a little bit of retracement here from this very directional move that we saw today.
Exactly. And so, you know, if I'm watching this market on Monday, I'm looking at that trend line, I'm looking at that 100-day moving average and seeing where we trade, because fundamentally I think we still favor the downside, but certainly these broken trends of the 100-day moving average and, you know, the continued uptrend are something to keep a watch on. So
absolutely,
Monday will be an interesting trade day.
You know, when you look at the last week of price action, we've had movements higher, followed by sharp sell-offs, followed by movements even higher. And so, you know, I don't necessarily think we're going to get that huge sell-off unless we really start to break this trend line with conviction. But, you know, like you said, there's a possibility we bounce back. But, of course, this is Friday. We like to talk a lot about the cash market. You know, we've seen the cash market, in a sense, support some of this rally. Did we see any adjustments in some of the key basis levels throughout the U.S.
When we look at basis change over the last week, both corn and beans up about 2 cents a bushel, but really the key driver in both markets was end user demand. Soybeans, ethanol, both of those sectors were positive to about 4 cents a bushel. In the case of corn, it was pretty widespread across the country. You had pretty much every player bidding up corn basis in the spot market. In beans, it was a little more mixed. We saw pretty good strength in Illinois, Ohio, Indiana, the Eastern Corn Belt, but Iowa and Minnesota actually saw some weakness, probably some tail-end harvest action going on there. So we saw crushing plants in those states, Iowa, Minnesota, off a nickel to a dime in some cases. In my guesstimate, you know, we're going to continue to see strength in particular corn, where we have very strong ethanol demand. You know, we talked about it yesterday with ethanol production accelerating at this time of year. So I think corn basis continues to move to the upside. And soybeans, you know, I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens in the futures market. You know, our farmers going to start to get nervous and start to liquidate some holdings that they've been holding on to and maybe force basis down.
That sounds fair enough. Guys, keep in mind that on Monday we do have the NOPA crush numbers. Those will move the market, so be cautious here. Another thing that could really spark some volatility in the soy complex. Other than that, guys, thanks a lot for tuning in. If you have any questions about what we talked about today, give us a call at 877-472-4607. And remember to go to grainhedge.com and take a demo of the mobile trading platform if you haven't already yet. It's a great tool. A lot of our producers love it when they're out in the fields, in the combine, and just away from the desk in general. Thanks a lot for tuning in, and have a great weekend. We'll see you next week.